Let me tell you about something interesting that I've noticed in my classes recently. So if you step into any middle school classroom, and if you give your students an activity of playing games on their computer or Chromebooks or watch a movie, you'll notice something very interesting. In the first 5 minutes, students are going to be maybe distracted. Some students always protest that they don't want to watch that movie or they don't want to play that game. So you'll hear conversations here and there, somebody's getting distracted and whatnot. But after 5 minutes, everybody just focuses in on that activity, and you're gonna have a very smooth class until the end of that activity. So if you keep doing it until the end of your class, that's just gonna be it. No talking, complete focus. And my theory is, if you let your students do that without any interruptions for 2 to 3 hours, I think they will be able to focus in that whole time frame. On the other hand, when you try to teach them a complex subject and you actually are teaching, the teacher's going in front of the class, what ends up happening is not even 5 minutes into it, kids start getting distracted. You hear some conversations going on, raising hands, kids asking to go to the bathroom, and all kinds of problems start to happen. And I'm sure that you guys have also noticed this at home when your kids are watching movies, watching TV, or playing games. They can stay focused and super into it, even if they're tired, even if they're hungry. But when it is time to do actual productive work, like homework, it's just so difficult for them. They find all kinds of excuses. Everything else starts to seem much more interesting for them. My name is Mr. Ace. I'm a middle school teacher. I have a master's degree in human development and education. And today I want to tell you what is happening to your kid in these situations in terms of their human development and in terms of their education, and how you can help them focus better. So firstly, their executive functioning skills are not fully developed. Let me tell you what that means. So our brain is a very complex organ. We all know that. And neuroscientists to this day are still not fully sure how our brains work. They're still discovering a lot of new things. But there's one thing that is very certain. There's a big part of our brain right behind our forehead, which is called a prefrontal cortex. If I had to explain it simply, it is basically like the CEO of our body. It does all that long-term thinking, strategy development, problem solving, planning, focusing. But what happens in an adolescent mind is that it just starts to develop in their teenage years. And actually, the funny thing is it does not fully mature until the age of 25. In that sense, our kids are biologically not equipped with all these right tools and skills to focus on things that are boring but important. That's why we gotta cut them a little bit of slack. We gotta understand this is biology. It's not that your kid is going crazy. Let me give you a simple example. Think about a time when you were a teenager and you did something that was crazy. And now when you look at it from your adult perspective, you feel like, what was I thinking? That was insane. What made me think this was a good idea? Well, your underdeveloped prefrontal cortex made you think this was a good idea. So it's the same thing that is happening to our kids right now. So it is not fully on them. Second of all, reward sensitivity. As parents, we're really familiar with the reward system. When our kids do something really good, we reward them because we want to see more of that behavior. And when they do something bad, we punish them. Very simple. The funny thing about our biology is our reward system, in contrast to our prefrontal cortex, develops much faster. So the teenage years are this weird time where kids' reward sensitivity is at the highest. Well, in comparison, our executive functioning is not developing fast enough. So you have people These teenage people who are roaming around with low executive functioning skills. That means they don't have any plans of future, they don't understand what's going on, and they're mostly driven by their hormones and mostly driven by their just adolescent mind, and they have very high sensitivity to rewards. So think about the video games that they play. Think about the movies and animations that our kids are watching. These companies that make them, they know the system really well. They know how susceptible they are at this moment. So they create games that are built on reward systems, which is super addictive for kids. And there's another layer to this problem. Because they're so sensitive to reward systems, they're very prone to being addicted. So a lot of people who become addicted to substances, social media, and have very severe problems, statistically, a higher percentage of these people have gotten exposed to these bad habits when they were teenagers, which is why, as parents, we need to be super vigilant and help them out when they're not fully thinking straight for themselves, and also they're very vulnerable to these reward systems. Lastly, feedback speed is very important. Now, if you worked in a company, feedback is something that we dread, but also is something that we can't work without. Because feedback, as harsh it can be, it helps us understand what we're doing right and what we're doing not right, and helps us advance in our skills in what we are doing. So same thing for kids. The problem is with homework, feedback is very long. You do your homework and you have to come back the next day and the teacher has to grade it, so you get feedback 2-3 days out. That is eternity for teenagers. But when they're playing games, what happens? They get instant feedback. You do a wrong action, what happens? You lose a point, you die, you restart, right? So feedback is instantaneous. The game automatically tells them you did something that was not right, that was not helpful. So they're back and they're gonna try something else. So they can pivot from their sequence of action very quickly and then change. So you might be thinking, why don't teachers and schools take this page out of games and start doing instantaneous feedback? I'm sure we can do that, especially today with computers and AI. We can definitely do that. Well, there's a lot of tools and activities we use in education system these days to try to emulate that, try to gamify our kids' learning process, which it is helpful to a certain degree as a tool. But it's not helpful in everything. And actually, when you have these traditional kind of homeworks, when they take away a very complex subject and do it right away and try to tackle that problem on their own without receiving feedback for a long period of time, it is helpful because it emulates life. Remember, in life, your kids are never going to be encountering situations that are very simple to solve, and there are instructions popping up in every step of the way. Think about your relationships, think about your career choices, think about big tasks when you start a business or create a certain project. There's always so much uncertainty. And as humans, we are drawn away from uncertainty and we want to go into a lot more certain situations. But life is just not like that. So being able to solve these complex tasks, even with the uncertainty, is a very important lesson. So how can we help them with their homework then? How can we help them navigate the situation a lot better? One thing that you can really do is help them tackle this big problem. Remember, when we have this complex task, you don't know where you're going to start. So that's one of the main things that turns away students who have the motivation to do their homework, but just don't know how to start, where to start, and how to tackle this big problem. That's why they don't do their homeworks. So how you can help is sit down with your kids and try to break this big homework up into small chunks. Think about what parts can they break it up into? How many tasks can they break it up into? If it's math homework, let's say you have 20 different tasks and maybe 10 of it is the same subject, and the rest, the other 10 is also a different subject, but it's just different tasks. So you can break it up into 2 different parts. And then first, what can we do? We can probably advise our kids to take a look at the materials that your teacher taught you and then try to solve the problems, because with the review, they'll be better equipped in solving those problems. So with that kind of steps, when you break it down into a system that is solvable, it makes it a lot more manageable. Remember, when we think about big projects like starting a company, that is super big. How do these entrepreneurs and innovators start those companies? They break it down into smaller sections and they find what they have to do today and the next day and the next day. And when you have been doing that for a whole year, you have built something as complex as a company, right? So it's the same thing. And when you help them break this out on the first few tries, your kid starts to learn the strategy, and after a while, you don't need to help them out. They can be doing this by themselves. And if they say they're stuck, what can you do? You can actually tell them that, remember the method that we used. Let's try to structure it. Let's try to break it down into small chunks and do each step. Just focus on each step first. And when you do each step, and when you know it, you will have your whole homework finished. And if you want to take it a step further and help gamify it a little bit so that they have an extra motivation to complete their homework, you can break it up into small steps, write them all down, and then reveal each step as your kid goes through it. Do not tell them what are they going to do next. So just give them one simple instruction, like do this simple task by reviewing your notes and completing it. And once you've completed, come back to me. That makes it a little bit more mysterious and it's more adventurous. It's a good opportunity to bond with your child and understand what they're going through. So if you want to try out this method, I want to give you a bit of a challenge. Start a comment thread in this comment section and then try this method out with your kids for a week. And every single day when you try it out, write a summary how it went and how your kid felt, how was the motivation levels, so that you can log it and after a week see if there is any improvement. And if there's no improvement, please let me know in the comment section and I can give you some more advice on how to deal with this. Thank you very much. I hope you guys learned something and have a good day. In education, I just sneezed. Oh.